All righty, going live in three, two, one. Well, this is No Limits, episode number two. Hi, Amanda. How are you doing this evening?
Hi, Zoom. I'm doing really, really well, actually. Looking forward to chatting and hearing about what you've been up to. And I don't know, I feel like there's lots of updates about the things that are going on in the world. So I'm excited to get started.
Yeah. Yeah. Before we went live, there, you were talking. Well, I haven't been paying attention to the news as usual. Again, I for the past month, I've gone off into my own little world. I've tried to hide almost from certain things, not completely from the world itself, just certain things that I was paying close attention to. I just kind of avoided over the past month. So, and you told me that you're afraid that we may go to war again, which is something that was like, whoa, what's that about? You got me curious. I know you wanted to discuss our involvement in Afghanistan. Uh, what is this possibility? Is there a possibility of war? I mean, you have to pardon my ignorance on that.
Oh, no. I mean, no ignorance at all. It's just like my own, I guess, concern at this point. And like people are saying, no, there's no way that a war could happen. It's just because, so many people were fleeing Afghanistan. The president left Afghanistan, and one of my friends made a statement that, right at that point when people were fleeing, it was a lot of men that were fleeing, and like they were leaving the women and children, which
Really? Like,
it's
like
pretty scary.
so they were leaving as far as leaving the women and children, I mean, were they leaving are these fathers and husbands leaving their people behind, their own families behind? Is that what you're saying?
I guess I should have did a little more research before I made that statement. I don't really know.
Okay.
I don't know. I just know that there were 13 US service members, and if they're saying like dozens of Afghans were killed in an attack outside Kabul's airport.
Hmm. Yeah, as far as this whole situation is, well, let's why don't we do this? Because you wanted to ask a question about that. Why don't we wait till we ask our question about that, and then we can discuss more about that topic. Do you want to do that? And then that way we can jump back to our previous question from last week and kind of see what kind of response we got to that. And then we can focus more on this topic, because this one's got me kind of curious, because I'm I'd like to know. I'd like to hear your opinion on this, as well as how you feel about this whole thing. So, but let me bring up the question from last week. All right, a second. Here it is. We got a pretty decent response on this one. Give me a second while I bring this up. And let's see. Share a screen, and hopefully you'll be able to see this. We forgot to test this beforehand. Can you see that? Are you able to see the screen with the question?
Yep.
Cool. Okay, so the question from last week is, are you afraid of spider crickets? So I was I last week when we were talking about spider crickets, the you had said that you had seen what was that? You had spider crickets in your home or something? Is that right? So I remember I had them in my home when I was a kid.
No, so what happened was Chris, my husband and I were looking at houses. We were in the market to possibly buy a house. And one of the houses that we went to look at had spider crickets in the basement, in like the cellar.
Oh, that's a good selling. That's going to make you want to buy it.
Mm-hmm. Not really. And the owners made it seem like it was an everyday occurrence. It was just normal that there were crickets in their basement all the time.
There we go. Because this is for everyone. No, we'll get to answering that question. Some of the people are asking, what are spider crickets? We'll see the responses in just a minute. But for those who are asking, what is a spider cricket? This, for a refresher, this is what they look like. Um, and no, that's as far as the mentality of the person who was selling the home. Was there anything else in the home that was unusual? They were like, oh, that's just commonplace as well. Like, was there like a toilet in the kitchen versus the bathroom or something that was really unusual?
It's so interesting that you're saying that, because when we got there, they had extra kitchen cabinets installed in their hallway. Like that was normal. It was a hallway going out from the back of the house to their backyard. And I looked at the woman, and I thought to myself, okay, this seems a little off that there's cabinets there. And she was like, oh yeah, we just needed more space. So she had all her kitchen stuff in the kitchen cabinets in the hallway.
And I mean, these, as far as the cabinets, were there actually, so were there cabinets in the kitchen plus the ones in the hallway? So it was like double the amount or something?
Yeah, it was just extra cabinets for storage. So obviously, like that's like a red flag to show you that they didn't have enough storage in their house, so that they had to add, storage into the hallway.
No, I assume that you did not. You decided not to buy this house. Am I correct on that?
You're absolutely 100% correct. And it showed me that I was definitely right with that decision, because when we told the owner that we were, not going to be putting an offer in on the house, she got really upset and she took it a little personally, and she said, I don't remember exactly what her words were to me, but she said something to me to the effect of thinking now nobody's going to buy the house. And I said to her, don't worry. I said, you'll definitely get your price. You'll definitely find the right buyer for your house. And she looked at me and she goes, are you sure? Like dead serious. And I was like, okay, if you don't think your house was going to sell, then like, I'm coming in as a buyer, as like a potential buyer. And if you think your house isn't up to par, like, wouldn't you do something to try to make it a little bit more desirable? I don't know.
Maybe tell her, well, politely tell her that, yeah, a basement full of spider crickets is not a good selling point. I don't think anyone would think that's I would not want to buy a house that was full of spider. Who knows what other kind of insects would be infesting the house as well. I mean, that's just an infestation right there. That's like walking in and seeing a house full of cockroaches almost. I mean, who wants to see about a house full of bugs of any kind in their house? These were actually in the basement, not like a cellar door or something that was outside. This is actually in the house, right?
Well, it was like the basement was a cellar. So
Okay.
it was like a storage cellar. There was nothing but they did have, excuse me, they had like all house decorations and bins in there of things that they were gonna that would eventually be brought into the house. So what if you did accidentally bring one into the house? Then you would really have an infestation issue in the house itself. So you're right. And Zoom, I didn't even think about that. The fact that there were these spider crickets. So does that mean that there was something else going on in the house as well?
Yeah. Yeah. No, I've got to admit that my house right now, I got a small little fruit fly problem I'm trying to get rid of, which is kind of annoying, but it's not bad. Nothing like, it's just every once in a while I see one flying by, and I'm like, that gets me irritated enough. But most of the bugs right now are outside. I don't have a problem, but I will say when my sister came over about a week or two ago, we were walking outside and she got bit like by mosquitoes like 2 or 3 times. I apologized to her because I didn't realize how many mosquitoes were outside my house, but they were outside the house, not inside, obviously. So, so I do have an insect issue outside the house. But it's not, but it's basically just seasonal bugs that are kind of commonplace. That itself is bad enough, but as far as crickets like that, yeah, I don't know. I do also have a small caterpillar issue that's outside my house that I'm trying to resolve. I walked out and there was a spot. It was completely outside, so not inside the house. But there must have been at least, I'd say, a couple hundred caterpillars piled up together. I'm not sure where they came from, but I did see one or two actually sneak inside the house. And at that point, I was like, yeah, okay, we got to get rid of those. I don't want any caterpillars. I don't. They might be gentle creatures. I don't know, but I don't want anything like that. So yeah, my first thought is just get rid of them as quickly as possible. I wouldn't want anything hanging around my house.
Yeah, absolutely. I wouldn't either. Freaks me out. I don't know if I think I told you last week that we did have cockroach issue at one point.
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah. And
Well,
then
we got rid of that. We got rid of that real fast.
yeah, that's good. Yeah, because those are extremely, yeah, very difficult. So one of the things I was talking about last week was my dad. We had these crickets that would show up in our house when I was a kid once in a while. They weren't a bad problem, just once in a while the spider crickets when I was a kid. They basically we had a cellar door, then they would just probably hop in once in a while, but it was nothing like what you're talking about. It was just like once in a while we'd see one hopping around and then somehow get inside the house. And my dad would always freak out when it'd climb up his leg. But he called them Mormon crickets. I couldn't remember the name. He called them Mormon crickets. And apparently he was calling them by the wrong name. So I looked up a Mormon cricket. And this is something I was telling you about before we started. This is what a Mormon cricket looks like.
Wait, they're real? I thought it was like a made up name. Oh, really? Oh, those are gross. Oh,
Here's another one right here. Um,
oh,
and they look pretty huge too. So and I looked them up on the internet. Apparently they're almost like bad like locusts. Like they infest areas, and they what they'll do is they'll like if you have crops and farmlands are they're a major pest annoyance for farmlands. So they'll eat the crops and destroy the crops. So what my dad was referring to as a spider cricket, he called spider crickets Mormon crickets. We did not see these at my house, so we did not have these. I'm not. These are. I don't think those are native to Virginia. I think these are more like a desert, almost like a desert thing. So, but yeah, I didn't mean to gross you out too much there. Sorry.
no, that's okay. Those are huge. I can't believe
Yeah.
you just in one of the pictures looked like they had a little tag on the guy's head.
Let's see. What's it? Um, on one of these on the spot on the cricket itself.
Yeah, on the cricket itself, there was a black one that looked like it had like a little tag. That one.
Oh, there you go. Oh, okay.
There's like a little tag on his head.
Oh yeah, it says has been tagged with a something radio tracking device. Oh, okay. So I guess they want to see where it goes. Okay, I see. That's interesting.
Whoa.
And they have one. Oh yeah, this one. Not only that, this one has one too, and you can see a little antenna going there too. I have. Oh, this one. Oh, this is interesting. This one that's at the top. I have these that come seasonal around. There are not very many of them, but at nighttime they make this really loud ratcheting sound. They look similar to this one. They're large and they're green, but the difference is the ones I have bright red eyes, and I only they I hear them at nighttime. They start making their ratchety sounds. It's like a really loud chirping sound, but really, really loud. They'll start around July and they last through September. So right now, if you walk outside, you'll be able to hear them in the woods. But one time, one got into my house. It is the only time I've lived here for 17 years. I only had one get into my house, and he started making a loud rat sound. I was like, oh my goodness. And I finally got a chance to see what they were because all this time I've lived here, I was like, what are these things that are making these sounds? And they're not scary, but I could see some people being scared of them, maybe in some way. But yeah, they look kind of like this, but their eyes are just bright red, like really glowing red, almost like blood red. So I don't know. I'm not sure exactly what they are, if that's the same creature or not. But whatever they are, um, they usually keep to themselves. Fortunately, they don't go around the house. It just is one occurrence where I actually caught, where one got inside. But other than that, I don't think they're that much of a nuisance. Is this one right there? Let's see.
Whoa.
That's kind of close to it as well. But yeah, it was really creepy looking at first. So
So interesting. You know, like we say like they're creepy looking and scary looking. I wonder what they think when they look at us like humans.
yeah, yeah. There's a movie. I don't know if you've ever seen it. It was called what's it called? 50 Million Miles to Earth. Wait a second. There was that was the American version of the title. Let me see if I can show you this. The reason I'm bringing this up because it had bugs as well. 50 Million Miles to Earth. I think that's the name of the movie. It was no, was that it? Oh, it was called. It was also called the Quater. Anyway, oh, I misspelled Earth. Anyway, I don't think that's gonna matter. Um, that's not. It came out in the 60s, and or maybe it was 20. Was it 20 million miles to Earth? Anyway, I wanted to show you the insects. If I can find it, I'll show it to you. In the movie, they found that what had happened was they went back. They were digging into a subway. This was made in Great Britain. They were digging into a subway and they found this spaceship, and the spaceship was being operated by insects, very very large insects, and they really looked. It was a cross between being kind of creepy looking because they pulled the insects out because they were already dead. They'd been dead for like several million years, and a cross between being creepy or just kind of almost laughable because they kind of look like little puppets. So I would, if I can find them, I'll show them to you. But they reminded me of of these different crickets that we're looking at right here. So if I find it, I'll find it. It was called the Quatermass. In Great Britain, they call it the Quatermass experiment. I'll see if I can find that there. Have you ever heard of that movie?
No, but it sounds pretty wild.
It's when I was a kid, I've heard several people refer to the movie as being very much, if you're a highly religious person, people get very terrified of the movie because there's a lot of religious undertones in it. I didn't find it scary. I was very religious when I was a kid. I'm not anymore. Nowadays, I'm different. I don't have any religious beliefs. But as a kid, my parents would say, "Oh my God, this is so religious and it's so scary." And one of the people that worked for me about 10 years ago, we were watching the movie on my in my studio because he was coming over to work, and he said, "Oh my goodness, yeah, this is all scary. This is about religion and everything." Because what happens in the movie, the crickets, these large crickets, they're about this. When I say large, I forgot to tell you this. They're about 2 to 3 feet in height, so they're not little tiny things. They're huge, and what happens is they have mind powers, and they're equated to demons. So throughout the movie, there's a lot of religious references to like devils and demons and people being taken over by ghost-like creatures. And so people who are heavily religious, I'm not saying they're all like that, but I've heard a few people on the internet. My parents aren't really. My dad isn't really religious anymore, but when I was younger, he was. And the guy who used to work for me, they would go on about how this is really the demons and everything were kind of. It was really they were slightly terrified of it, not really, but a little bit. It was really interesting. I guess you could, if you watch the movie, you might be able to see that, but for some reason, I didn't really see that much of. It seemed like the religious part of it was kind of tame to me, but maybe it's because it was the 60s. It's an older movie. I don't know. People reacted differently. My parents they were in their 20s in the 60s. So maybe it was something that was more scary back then than it is nowadays. Something that would be, how things change over time, I guess. But
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. I mean, if you look back, even like when I look back at movies and shows and things from the 80s, now I'm like, they don't look like they're scary at all. But when I was younger, it really did terrify me. So it makes a lot of sense.
yeah, yeah, I
Mhm.
can with that. That's a good analogy right there. But yeah, if I find that picture, I'll show that to you. So anyway, getting back to our question from last week, are you afraid of spider crickets? 51% overwhelming. Well, it's not really overwhelming. It's about more than half, but 51% yes. Next one down, 31%. What is a spider cricket? So next we got 10% with no, 5% with I hate all bugs, and 3% with I don't care. So some of these questions were we only got 15 responses, not too many. That's not too bad though. Mr. Philip says I hate all insects. Thanks for the question. Uh, broken what? I can't read what that says. Broken something. Segway. See, I can't read it. Sorry. I'm terrified of both. So yeah. What is a spider cricket? I think there's a few of those. Got a little laugh right here. Yes. What is a spider cricket? That is a good question. Yes, very afraid of them. And you were the one that called them a spider cricket. Is that right? Because I'd never heard that term before.
Yes, it was me. Uh-huh.
Okay. Okay. Because I never, was that something that you had known since you were a kid? Because like I said, my dad always called them the wrong name. So I always referred to them as Mormon crickets. Now I've been corrected, of course. Was that something that you had always known or?
No, I never even heard of them until I went to go see that house. And then
Oh, oh.
my whole world was opened up by these people because I never heard of them before.
You know, you know what it reminds me of? When I was a kid, we were at some sort of it was some sort of religious, it was a church or something. I was very, very young. And we went down to the cellar of whatever this was. There was a lot of nuns there, and they were doing something. I don't remember what it was exactly. But that whole story about the spider crickets being near the cellar, we walked down this little staircase that went down to a door that went underneath whatever this religious place was. It was in a somewhat rural area, so it wasn't like in a city, but it was kind of rural. When we got down to the bottom of the stairs, there must have been probably 100 tiny frogs, baby frogs, just hopping around on the floor next to the door. It was definitely like what you refer to as an infestation of frogs. They were all, and they weren't more than maybe an inch long at the most. They were very tiny. Um, and of course, me as a kid, I see something, I got to catch one, so I had to catch one. So I ended up catching what appeared to be the only. I caught a toad, but they were just sitting there hopping around, and I'd never seen that many frogs gather. And the nuns at the church, they didn't seem to be bothered by it. They were like they seemed to be happy with, or content anyway. I don't know about happy, but they didn't seem to be disgusted by it or anything. So I just remember it was like, why are all these frogs here? And it reminded me of what you said with that the spider cricket thing. Like there was just a huge infestation.
Yeah, actually, when I went down to Myrtle Beach to my aunt and my uncle had a house built down there, they have little frogs that like climb up their walls at night.
Oh, really? And do they get into the house?
No, thankfully, we just have to make sure that, you're running into the house and not opening the door too much, but they go into the lights. They like to go into like the outside lights that have like they had an outside light that had the glass around it and they would go inside. I have to see if I could find a picture if I took any pictures of it. It's so interesting. I'm like, I don't even know where they come from, these little things.
Hmm. So aside from that, were they what did they do? Did they try to get rid of them? I assume that they would try to. I mean, it sounds like they're a nuisance of some kind there.
Yeah, but they only came out at night, so they didn't really do anything about it.
Hmm. I finally found it. Okay, I finally found some pictures here. Here we go. Here's the Quatermass experiment. Okay, this right here. This is why people who are religious, I've seen, what happens at the very end of the movie, I'm kind of giving this away, is that the cricket creatures form like a demon type creature, and the head is huge. You can see to the left, there's a guy's head right over here. He's looking at this thing, and it's basically mind powers that are left over because the crickets are all dead. Somehow their essence or whatever is creating this demon like creature that's focused in the air, and it really terrifies people who are really I'm sure it does everybody. Like I said, my parents, the guy who used to work for me at the very least, they were really, they were really they were really affected by it. I mean, they really thought, wow, this is really something. And when I saw the movie, I was like, oh, I just thought it was kind of interesting, but it didn't really affect me in that way. And here's the big crickets here that you can see them right there, how big they were. So
Wow, that's incredible. But I guess like what you're saying, it's the undertone of the movie. So it was all like the hidden messages and things like that that people really took to
Mhm.
heart and it scared them.
You ever watch the show Doctor Who by chance?
No, but I've heard so much about that show.
This show is equivalent to the like a different it's been compared to Doctor Who. This movie is. So if you're familiar with that show, you might see that this one is kind of like falls in the same kind of center. Doctor Who has kind of like silly science fiction stuff, and this has, with these old crickets, they had silly science fiction stuff. You can see what they look like here. But anyway, I found I was excited to show you what it looked like.
Well, thank you for sharing. They're pretty cool and creepy all at the same time.
So let me see the was oh we go back to our thing. Team Rogers says yes, very afraid of them. Hipster something says, what is that? What is a spider cricket? He says, me, good question. And a little smile, a little face. The fact that I hate all bugs, I don't know why. Maybe yes, and oh, this guy always leaves the same response. I'm not sure what that means. Volto 85. So how do you feel about that?
How do I feel about Volto 85?
I'm sorry about our results for our question from last week.
Oh, yeah, I think they're pretty good. I'm happy that a few people wrote in to ask us some questions and to just let us know that they hate bugs as much as I do.
So is that all bugs, or is that just are just certain kinds of bugs?
Well, I guess I like lightning bugs. I don't know if you remember from like being a kid and trying to catch them in jars. I love them because they make me think of the summer.
Hmm. Actually,
Yeah.
I do have lightning bugs around my house. I see them every once in a while. So, but I do remember trying to catch them when I was a kid, and usually we wouldn't put them in. I don't know if I put them in jars. We would just catch them on a stick and then walk around with while they're holding them on their stick, and they would just fly away eventually. So, yeah.
That's a much nicer way to do it because if you put them in a jar, I don't know if they could actually breathe in there. So probably the stick was a more humane idea.
Any other bugs that are out there that oh, how about spiders?
So I usually won't kill a spider because I know that if you somebody told me that if you have a spider in your house, it means you don't have an oil leak.
You
So
you Wait, what? Say it again. I've never heard that before. If you have a spider in your house, you don't have an oil leak.
Yeah, you don't have an oil leak. I don't know why that is, but now I feel like I have to look it up.
Yeah,
But
I've never heard that before. That's interesting. So
they kill other bugs.
yeah, I don't I usually don't touch spiders because they'll create little, well, unless I I walked down in my basement and there was a part of the house I hadn't gone into for a while, and there was a couple of spider webs that I had to get rid of. And they were very intrusive. So unfortunately that I had to get rid of. That was a little different. I didn't expect I walked down in the basement to turn on the light, and all of a sudden I was walking right into a big spider web. I was like, "Ow, cripes." So that's a little different. That I had to get rid of. But usually, yeah, if it's just a little spider on the floor or something, I usually think that they're going to help keep the population down, unless there's an overwhelming number of spiders. But I've never had that problem. Usually, I only see like one or two spiders a year at the most, so I'd let them live there.
Hmm. I leave them alone too.
Yeah. So you had what was your question? Now what do you want to ask the question for next week for our listeners, our viewers?
I wanted to ask about what's going on in Afghanistan right now. If people think that, our president should have pulled the troops out sooner.
Okay. How should we phrase that question? Do you think we should have pulled out sooner in general? Does that include any previous presidents or just our current president?
I don't know. I guess any, like, if people think that we shouldn't even have been in Afghanistan for as long as we were.
Hmm. Okay, I see how would we phrase. So, do you think we should have? Oh, well. So this is going to be for an international audience. So, I don't.
Oh,
We're
that
gonna
might
give
not
you.
work then, right?
Well, we could say, do you think the U.S. United States should have pulled out of Afghanistan sooner, maybe?
Yeah.
And then one of the responses, um, we could say, they should have never been there in the first place. We should
Oh, that's a good idea.
pulled out of. Hold on a second. Get my Afghanistan. There we go. I know I misspelled that one, so I'll just cheat and grab it.
That's a good idea, though. That's a good way to get the proper spelling.
Yeah. Yeah. Sooner. There we go. Sooner. Okay. Do you think, left the word out
Hmm.
and I spelled it, two T's. Oh, I see why, because a T were there. Do you think the United States should have pulled out of Afghanistan sooner? So I guess yes, no. Is that right? Oh, what am I doing? Sorry. There we go. Okay, I
It's
put.
Friday.
Okay, let's see. Yes, no. The United States should never been there in the first place.
That's a good one.
I remember when they went in, I thought it was pretty stupid.
Hmm.
And there was this really gung ho attitude. Like we knew they had a list of countries they were going to go into on their first place. I thought it was really, it was like after the World Trade Center went down, they went to Afghanistan, then they went to Iraq, and when they were actually going to go into two more countries, and I believe North Korea was one of the other two countries. I don't remember what the fourth country was. And there was a list of countries that it was like, why are we doing this? I didn't understand. It didn't make any sense to me. So, do you think the United States should have pulled out sooner? Yes, no. The United States should have never gone there in the first place. Okay, and I misspelled first. Okay. Any other comments or anything else you'd like to add to that?
Do you think anybody wouldn't care?
No, see, exactly what I was going to say.
On neutral?
I don't care. Not acre, care. There we go. And I don't care. Anything else you want to add to that? We can add one more option if you want to.
Hmm. No, because I can't think of anything like that would be like an I don't care. Like I'm neutral or I think they should stay. They should have stayed. I don't know.
Oh well, yeah, that would fall to the. Oh, that's a good one. Maybe, yeah. I guess we could put that. Yeah, but they should have stayed. Hmm. Okay. Okay, I see. Let's see. Should have copy that. Should have stayed. Does that look good?
Yep.
Okay. Cool. All right. We're maxed out on our options here. So I'll go ahead and post that. All right. And we'll come back to that and see what kind of response we get. Like I said, we got an international audience, so we'll get a lot of I'm sure we'll get a lot of different people commenting on this. Let me go ahead and add that to the while I'm doing that. I'm going to add that to our feed over here on our chat section over here, so people know it's there. Sometimes they don't realize that the chat and the poll are connected. So let me go ahead, put that in there. Take part in our poll. All right, so it's in the chat section too. There we go. It's in there. Cool. All righty. So we can come back to that later. So now, what were we saying before the family? You said that you said people you said men were leaving and women and children being left behind. And I asked the question if these were fathers or husbands. And you said you don't know. Were these? I've also heard stories where from other countries where people have been leaving, where it's not necessarily that it's men that are leaving their families, but just basically single men, the young men that don't have families yet. Do you think it might be something like that? I know we haven't really looked it up.
Yeah, it could be. I'm seeing an article right now that was in the Washington Post that said men may be disproportionately leaving because not. Yeah, you're right. It says not that they are abandoning their families.
Hmm. Okay.
Yeah.
My opinion was, and I never understood that because it was like they went in, Bush went in. It's all because of but it's all because of the World Trade Center, correct? That's why we went in there. That's not. I
Yes.
know. Okay, because I wasn't sure if we were there before. I just remember that we went and invaded that because we did do something in that area, but it was back in the 90s, and I can't remember what it was. So, um, and if I can't remember if it was involving Afghanistan or not. And I was like, why are we? I was saying to myself, why are we going in there? This is stupid. And it was like this weird kind of we're going to get the people who did this, and it's like they went there, and it seemed like uh, nothing really came out of it. It just seemed like we just occupied the area. And then we went, like I said, went to Iraq, and then they said the weapons of mass destruction. They couldn't find any of that. And then after that, then everything just kind of fizzled out, and no one wanted to go into any more countries. Do you remember that?
Yes. Hmm.
Yeah. Yeah, and then I think, like I said, North Korea and one other country were, and I can't imagine going into North Korea because aren't they? They're pretty. I mean, it's relatively small, but they're still pretty. They're from what I understand, they can be pretty much of a threat. That's not like some of these countries in the Middle East aren't that much of a threat, but I think North Korea is more of a threat than anything else right now. The idea that they would go into North Korea was like that's pretty bold. I didn't want them to do that, but that's kind of a I don't know. How do you feel about that?
I don't know. I agree with everything that you're saying. I just feel like it's all so scary. It's like, and I think that maybe some other countries will be like, who does the United States think they are? Why are they coming in here?
Right, right.
You
And
know, like,
I remember during the first. I remember. Do you remember Kuwait?
not as well.
Okay, during the early 90s, I remember during that time there was a really gung ho attitude, and I was like really angered by it. It was like even back then because I don't know if I've said this before. I'm extremely anti-war. I don't like violence. So all these people were walking around with yellow ribbons saying we're gonna go in, and there hadn't been a major conflict in the United States for a while, and it seemed like there was this really war mentality that had built up during the later part of the 80s. And it's very obvious, at least for me and other people, we noticed this. And it was like people seemed to be waiting for something to trigger so they could go to war again. And it's like, what, I'm thinking to myself, now the 60s were before me, but whatever, I was thinking to myself, what happened to the peaceful people of the 60s that I tried to relate to? As like, as far as like anti-war, during the 80s, it was this weird attitude that, um, they were looking to pick a fight somewhere, and finally when Kuwait came along, people were like, yeah, we need to go over there, we need to stop was it Saddam from going over to from invading Kuwait. And I was like, why? Well, there's no reason to go over there. And the whole thing just really made me angry. And people, like, I worked at a place at the time, and I was thinking about how I read these little. I was constantly making these anti-war statements, and the people around me, they respected me. I'll give them that, because they were on the pro side, but they respected my opinion, which was very interesting. So at least we didn't have any arguments or anything. We learned to respect each other even though we had a different point of view, which is kind of interesting. You don't really see that nowadays. If you had a different point of view, it'd be more like people would just be arguing back and forth. But we actually respected each other, which I found kind of interesting. And after they went in, they acted like it was the government went in, and the military went in, and they did the exact opposite what they did during Vietnam. I don't know if you know that. During Vietnam, they sent television crews in, media people, and the media people would actually broadcast the war live over TV. I don't know if it was live, but they would definitely film it, and it would be presented in people's homes. And it was the first time that war was presented in that way, so people could actually see the devastation and what's going on. When they went into Kuwait, they did the exact opposite. They hid the military. They hid the cameras. They didn't let them go in, and you couldn't see the devastation that was going on. It was almost like the military was trying to cover up the fact that this was going to be a bloody mess, and they wanted to make it so that it wouldn't be another Vietnam where people were protesting it. They were trying to make it out like this was some sort of good war, and it wasn't. It was just crap. It was all nonsense. It was really, and people just kept on buying into it. The mentality back then was just so different than it is right now, and it was like so weird that people were doing that. Like I said, I'm very anti-war. Even during after the World Trade Center was hit, I wore a little peace symbol on my shirt button when people were wearing American flags, just to say, I didn't think we should be being attacking anybody. Even then there was like a lot of people saying we need to go and attack. I never understood that mentality.
Yeah, I agree. I think that people were just so angry after, 9/11, and they were looking for it. But it's an interesting point, and I didn't what you just spoke about, I had no clue about that Vietnam was very publicized, and the media there was a lot of media coverage, and then in Kuwait there wasn't. That's interesting. I really didn't know that. Because that was, I mean, Vietnam was before my time, and, with Kuwait, I was a little kid, so I remember, small things on the news about when we found Saddam, but I don't remember, like, what it was like.
Right. And it was very odd. This is I'm just using my I'm just presenting my opinion here. So what I remember was I was Vietnam was before my time too. So but I do remember that learning about what was going on at the time. There's a correlation between the American Civil War and the Vietnam War, in the sense that the American Civil War was the first time that people got to see what the war was about through photographs, through like James Brady, who was a famous photographer during the war. So he would take photographs after the battle took place, and it was presented to the public. So the public, for the first time, got to see what war was like through his photographs. And there was another famous photographer as well. The same thing happened during Vietnam, in the sense that instead of being photographs, though, you actually got to see video and film of what was going on during the war itself. So it was also thrust, and they completely, like I said, they completely hid that fact from the public. They were really trying to make it like it was a good war. I thought this was also I thought it was kind of disgusting. They constantly referred to as when the United States actually went in, they kept on referring to the United States and the other people that were going in as the allies, like because they're trying to, in my opinion, they were trying to make it seem like this is World War II, because the Allies were the good guys, and they were trying to use the word allies to promote this idea that this was a good war, like World War II. It was really disgusting. The whole thing it was reeking of this is pathetic, and ever since then, they've never, the military doesn't allow you don't see the media going in anymore like it was during Vietnam. It's very much they hide it because I don't think they want the negative publicity anymore. Um, I mean that's the way it comes across. I'm not condemning anybody. It's in the military. I'm just condemning what the military and generally the people that were leading everything were what they were doing to try to make this out to be something that was, I don't know. It was discussed. The other thing during the Kuwait War, they had the yellow ribbons. I don't know if you remember that. Like they were like to support the troops that are going in, almost like we're going to have this pro-war rally to support our troops while they go in and free the Afghanistan, the Kuwaitis, and it was all about oil. So that was the other thing that made me angry. I don't know if you know this. I'm not trying to say we should overthrow any country, but in order to overthrow a country, you have to destroy what it lives off of. And in the United States, you can only do that. There's only a few ways to do that, and that's through its oil, through food, which is that's in any country really. But you really can't destroy the food supply in the United States, but you can destroy the oil supply. And it's the same with like I've studied a lot of Native American cultures. The in the Central America, not the Aztec, but the oh, before the Aztec.
Incas?
I'm sorry, say it again.
The Incas?
No, not the
No.
Incas. No, they were South America. What was it? I cannot remember not the Olmec. I can remember every name, but anyway, the cultures there, they have the pyramids that are still there in the Mayans. The Mayans, that's them. I couldn't remember who they were. The
Mhm.
Mayans. The Mayans it's believed that their culture collapsed because another outside source was able to cripple something from within. So maybe their food supply or something like that. And that's why I believe the United States went into Kuwait, is because they found it was another country that was about to collapse something that the United States heavily depended on. It was the same kind of basic idea, and they were trying to prevent that from happening. So, and the whole thing was just it was a bad decision, and they kept on trying to prop it up like some sort of good war. It's like I just anyway, it's the whole thing was just it was just almost like, I guess, I don't know if propaganda is the right word, but it was just the whole thing was just handled so aggravatingly annoying. I can't think of the right word. It just really made me angry. That's what it was. And anyway, I'm not sure how you feel about war and all that, but I've always been extremely anti-war about anything. And the idea that it was like they were able to make so many people during that first war act like this is such a good thing, and then they acted like when they went in and got Saddam, they didn't even go in there and finish the job. Not that I'm saying they should have, but they didn't finish the job, and then they acted like they did, and it was like a good thing, and it was like the whole thing just was just stupid. And I don't know. I can't think of anything else at this point. I'm just gonna spout. I'm just spewing my or spouting out my hatred of war, I guess, and how stupid I think the whole thing was handled.
That's fair. It's you feel passionate about it, so thank you for sharing. But I agree. I'm actually anti-war as well. I think that there are other ways to solve disputes, and there's other resolutions for things. I don't think that the first thing is to go and fight a country and go start bombing them. I don't think that that's the way to, resolve anything.
Right, right,
Mhm.
and yeah, and ever since the military is right now is just trying to not the main force of the military. I'm not condemning any of the soldiers, just the higher ups. They're trying to hide everything, make everything like seem it's always positive. That war was that whatever you want to call it, conflict was definitely something that was. They were trying to control and make it out to be something like World War II, which a lot of people stood for, and a lot of people fell for it. It was so bizarre how so many people fell for that. Like I said, I want to use the word propaganda if that's the right word, but it's like I couldn't believe how many people. I felt like I was so isolated, like me and a few other people. Oh, it was just this pro-war mentality, and it was just so weird. That wouldn't happen nowadays, but it may happen in the future. I mean, mentality, things can switch and go to the other direction very easily. But anyway, the and as far as getting back to the Afghanistan stuff, I as far how do you feel about how Biden handled the whole situation? Well, I didn't even ask you that.
I don't know. I mean, I feel like everything happens with the suicide bombing, and he was trying to get people out sooner. And then when it was time for Biden to make a statement, he was like, he wasn't there.
Yeah, yeah, and I, I'm I'm not I'm not a fan of I'm not a fan of Biden. I'm not, and one thing's for certain, I don't take sides. I'm not a like the people that will like they'll have a political side. I don't take one side or the other. In fact, I don't like either side really. As far as like the main, I don't like the Democrats or the Republicans. The they're both seem to be pro war right now. There doesn't seem to be any of the like the leftovers from the 60s where there are people that were actually anti-war. It seems like they've all just taken sides now with the Democrats. It's like and that's not what I'm about. And all these people seem to be taking his side. But I heard that, is it true? Because like I said, I haven't been paying attention, that a lot of the Democrats are also against what Biden was doing as well. They were, or I should say, they were upset with his way he handled it.
Yes. Uh-huh.
Okay.
I'm with you at this point. I hate politicians. I'm like, should I actually even say that? But I don't know. I feel like there's like this control for power right now going on. It's like, I don't know, it's just very upsetting what's going on
Yeah.
all around. Mhm.
Yes. Yeah. Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off. Go ahead.
No, no, go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, there are politicians on both sides, well, of the main parties. Like on the right, I'm a big fan of Ron Paul because he was like anti-war. On the left, you have Bernie Sanders. I'm not fully for his socialization,
Mhm.
socializing things, but I am. He was a very much anti-war person, and I respect that. And McGovern, if you remember McGovern, he passed away recently. I'm not even a big political person, so, but these are people. It doesn't matter what side they're on, as long as they have this anti-war stance. I'm usually with them. It doesn't matter what um, I don't care what their political party or who they affiliate with. These people tend to have a very positive, more positive outlook at what things are, and um, and they don't want to be involved. I mean, my thought is always, why are we involved in all these things in the first place? I assume it's because of World War II. After World War II, we started to go around all over the place. And that's especially with Germany, when Germany was occupied. You probably don't remember when it was divided into two countries, do you?
No.
It was when I was a kid, it was East Germany and West Germany. So it was always we it was never referred to as Germany. And when it actually got reunited, when was that? Like during the late 80s, when the early 90s, when the wall came down. I was like, it was like weird to all of a sudden be referring to it as a single country, because when I was a kid, it was always referred to as two separate countries. So, and
Mhm.
the United States occupied one side, and obviously the Soviet Union occupied the other side, and all that. So, but it's no, I guess I'm going off on my little tangents here. But um, as far as the as the what has Biden done since that? Has he actually tried to readdress it? Has he, like I said, I've been phasing out from the big news stories right now. What is he doing to? Has he tried to correct it?
That's a I'm actually I just pulled up an article in the New York Times because I was busy today filming. So I didn't even have time to like look up and see what was going on today. But there's like this clip of him saying that he said to them, "We will hunt you down."
Referring to the Taliban, I
Yeah.
guess. Oh, okay.
After the attack near the airport.
Oh, okay. Well, as far as like pulling out, I mean, what are the is the country is the United States is not going back in at all at this point? Is that right? So the Taliban is basically in full charge. If that's I've only heard bits and pieces. Is that correct?
So, yeah, I mean, he said that he's pledging to retaliate against the attackers and continue evacuations.
Hmm.
Yep. So I mean, I'm assuming we're pulling out.
Okay. Okay. The I think Trump was going to pull out too. But wasn't he already in the process of pulling everything out before the election, or just before the election, right? Or during sometime during the election, he had said something about pulling everyone out. Um,
Mhm.
and everyone, people were like, "Why are we pulling out?" I was like, "That's a good idea. Why don't we pull out?" And And I don't know. It seemed like people at that point were just like, if Trump said it, they were like against Trump just for the fact of saying it. But if Trump says something that makes sense, like pulling the troops out, then I would be, obviously for that. I'm not going to be against somebody just because, I never understood that. If he says that's something good, then you want to support that. Um, but and now as far as as far as the leader of the country, he left too, right? The president, or how did? Oh, we really should have researched this beforehand. Sorry.
I know we honestly, we should have, definitely both of us should have. So we have to put a pin in that, right? And find out what's going on later.
Yeah. So, though, as far as are there refugees coming in? Have you heard anything about that?
Honestly, no, I didn't read anything today. So I probably should have told you we shouldn't talk about this until we do a little bit more research.
Okay. Okay. Well, let's see. Let's see. Give me one second here. No questions. I was looking to see if anyone asked any questions there. So, alrighty. Let me. I guess our show was well, I at least got to get my anti-war message out. So,
Which is perfect, right? You obviously feel really passionate about it. And I love when somebody has an opinion and can back up the opinion with facts, which is exactly what you did. So
yeah.
bravo, Zoom.
The I also, I don't know if I've ever said this, but my historical interests are usually I have a big historical interest in the American Civil War and also Native American history. So I studied both. And when it comes to the American Civil War, I like to say that I like to find correlations that are similar between that and the Vietnam War. For some reason, I guess, and and there were a lot of similarities between the two, and that's why I wanted to draw that correlation between that with the photography. And as far as bringing it to the public, before the American Civil War, I don't think, if I remember this correctly, at least in this country, I don't know about any other country, that was the first time, like I said, that the public had ever seen what war is about. But I wanted to step back because there was something I wanted to address with that. James Brady, and I cannot remember the other photographer's name, the two photographers that were famous for doing this. The photographs that they showed were actually manipulated. What they would do is they didn't take photographs of the actual battles, so they couldn't do that because back then the photographs you had to open up the camera lens and let the light sit on the image for about 2 or 3 seconds. Otherwise, the image would be and you had to be still for that period of time. Unlike like a modern camera, you can just take a snapshot. Back then, you had to stay. The picture had to remain perfectly still for like at least 2 or 3 seconds to get captured on the plate. It was like a glass plate where the images were caught. So what he would do is he would take the dead bodies of the soldiers and he would actually reposition them in different ways, and then to make it look like the soldiers were doing things, that their bodies were located in different ways, I should say. He would take, and it's very funny because I've seen specials that talk about this. He would actually, you could actually see like one soldier being done in different poses, and and you could see the guns that they were using were actually like, he would actually take parts of, like there would be a bayonet on one of the rifles. He would put the bayonet on the incorrect way, and the pictures were obviously staged, so to speak. He would actually maneuver the dead bodies of these poor men and take the pictures so they would tell a story that he wanted people to see rather than what actually happened, which I think is kind of deceptive, obviously. So, and so any picture you see from the American Civil War, you got to look at it and realize that's probably not exactly how the soldier died. It's most likely he's been repositioned or put in some sort of way to try to articulate or not articulate, but try to portray some sort of um, a, something that actually happened that it didn't actually happen. I think that's when you actually realize that, you start to see that the pictures for themselves are not really as genuine as they really should have been. So. Whereas when you get to the Vietnam War, those were mostly more genuine. I don't know all the historical context when it came to the Vietnam War, but there may have been some times when they were doing something similar as well, just for propaganda purposes, to try to say how this is, basically try to get the news people to do things in a certain way so that you would see something in a way that would portray the United States in a better light. I'm sure that's things like that happen as well. So, but the those pictures were definitely highly manipulated. Highly manipulated is the word I'm trying to say. So
That's so interesting that they wanted it to be perceived a certain way, so they did what they needed to switch it.
yeah, yeah, yeah. And it's kind of grotesque too when you think about it. He's actually taking people's dead bodies. I no, I'm not an expert on health at all, but when rigor mortis sets in, I'm not pronouncing that word correctly. Um, the body becomes stiff, but then becomes, if I remember correctly, it becomes loose after a while. Is that right? I don't remember how that works.
Oh, I actually think what you're saying is right, but I don't know. I could look it up, but
Okay, yeah, I was just trying to remember. So I'm just curious, how soon after they got to those bodies, he started maneuvering them around, that when the muscles were all stiff, and how he was able to maneuver them in the position he wanted to, and also, especially I hate to say this, but the odor, the smell. I mean, especially like at Gettysburg. I mean, Gettysburg, there were like 50,000 dead people there. I mean, that must have been it must have been such a stench for people to have to walk through. Um, anyway, I was just, it's just going through there. And I should be laughing because it's so sad that those people died. Really, it's really sad something like that happened. Um, anyway, would you like to go and check our question again from the beginning so we can see what kind of response we got here? Let me bring this up here.
yeah, I'm interested to see, especially what people from other countries or other parts of the world, like how they feel about the United States.
Yeah, I will say this. I do remember after the September 11th attacks took place in 2001, the United States had this pro-American attitude. Um, I'm not saying you shouldn't have a pro attitude about your country. Um, but what I always think that when it comes to like when we're dealing with policy and things, we should focus on our people first. Like, and the problem I have right now is with some of the people in government that they want to focus on other people that are having problems outside of our country. And I keep on saying, what about the homeless people in our country? Why aren't we taking care of them first, or taking care of other people in other countries first? That's something that always kind of made me angry. We have people that are having problems in this country; they can't pay their bills, and it seems like they want to focus on other people first. And I do have I have a pro-American first attitude, not like a patriotic attitude, but like the people that live in this country first. We should, in my opinion, we should be taking care of them first before we think about doing other things in other countries. I don't know. I don't know how you feel about that, but it just,
Sorry, I don't want to cut you off. I've actually felt that way since I'm a child. Like I remember seeing people in Manhattan, like on the streets, who were homeless, who didn't have places to live, they didn't have food, and we were so busy going to these other countries to go help them, or to go bring them aid, or to go to war. And I remember even as a child thinking it wasn't right.
yeah, yeah. And I just don't understand the attitude. It's like, and when I say pro-American, put American first, there are some people that are like, like a patriotic waving the flag. I'm not talking about that at all. I just want to make sure that I'm just saying, let's put our own people, let's take care of our own people first before we start going around the whole world and ignore our own people and then just take care of everyone else. It just seems kind of weird. It's like you have a family and like their kids are not being able to eat right, but the family is going around helping their neighbors first instead of their own kids. It just doesn't make any sense to me. So,
Absolutely. Mhm.
let me see. Okay, the question looks kind of pretty good response. We got two chromes. Here we go. I'll bring it up here. And I misspelled the United States. I knew would do something there, but in my response, the third one down, I said stays instead of states. Um,
Oh,
so I think everyone knows what it means. Do you think the United States should have pulled out of Afghanistan sooner? Overwhelmingly 66% with yes, or I'm not yes, but the United States should never have gone there in the first place. Interesting. That would be my response too. So
mhm.
next down 14% with yes. Next down 9% with no. And oh wow, 7% with the United States should have stayed. That's actually I think that's pretty high actually. That's interesting. I would think that number would even be less than that, and 5% with I don't care. So, and we got Sandeep Mohanar, who responds to almost all of our questions. They should have stayed there to protect them. They don't have enough army potential, so USA might stay there protecting them from terrorist group. They made a bad decision there. Interesting. So Sandeep is actually for the idea of them staying there. It's interesting.
Yeah, to protect them.
Yeah. And Beast Mode says Joe's mom should have pulled out sooner. Joe's mom, Joe Biden, is he a friend of Joe Biden? What does he mean by that? Do you know what that means?
No, I think it might be a dirty comment.
Oh, okay. Sorry, I'll hide that one. All right. Okay. I wasn't sure if he was making some sort of political reference there. So, all right. Well, that's interesting. I do think that if this question had been asked back in about 20 years ago, 2001, let's say 2002, I think this would have been a completely different thing. They probably would it probably would have been higher on the no. In my guess, that's just a guess. And probably higher on the second one. Like the second one and the fifth one would probably been much higher, in my opinion. And this one that got 66% would probably be much lower. What do you think?
Yeah, I agree. I think that everybody was in a completely different mindset after the September 11th, bomb, the plane crashes. So I
Yeah.
agree.
Yeah. Sorry. Go ahead. I'm sorry. I didn't mean to cut you off. Go ahead.
No, I just said I agree.
Okay. And I remember, do you remember this? It was this came back to me just as we are talking, how there was this whole stupid thing where like France wouldn't let the United States land their planes in Afghanistan, or something to do with the planes weren't allowed to land in France while they were heading toward Afghanistan. So people were saying we don't want to buy French fries anymore, so we're going to buy American fries. Do you remember that? It was like a stupid thing.
Oh, yes. You saying that like reminded me of that. I completely forgot about that.
Yeah, and France was like anti-war, or I don't know if they were anti-war, but they were at least anti-involvement, I should say. So, and it was just stupid. It was like, and then people were saying, "I'm not going to eat French fries anymore." It's like, what is it? What am I watching? What's going on here?
Like, what's going on in the world right now, right? And it just, I don't know.
Oh, by the way, I point this out. I just realized this. I misspelled states twice. In the third response.
Well, at least you're consistent with your mistakes.
Yes, you should have caught me there, by the way. So it's your fault too. No, I'm just kidding.
Oh, I should have caught it. You're right.
So, alrighty. Well, let's see. Well, I guess we can. Unless you had anything else, we can go ahead and wrap everything up for this evening.
No, I think that I'll make sure for next week that I'm a little bit more prepared when it comes to political statements and political questions.
Okay, and I'll do that as well. Like I said, I had a situation that occurred a month ago with a woman, and it's just put me in a funk that I'm getting out of. I feel much better right now than I did a month ago, and ever since then, I stopped watching politics. I stopped watching. I just started. All I do is on YouTube right now is I'll just watch people that talk about movie reviews, TV show reviews, and it's things that are pretty much inoffensive, things that aren't controversial. And so it's not that I don't, it's just I'm trying to get my mind into a different state right now, I guess. And I just have no desire to watch current events anymore. It's kind of strange. And the only news I look at is basically local news, like what's going on in the local cities, governments, things like that. Nothing on a large scale, except for any COVID news. Occasionally I'll look at that, but that doesn't seem to be a big issue right now. In fact, at least here anyway, it seems to be dying down. Didn't you say something was going on in New York recently? That was going to happen. What were you saying last week? It was happening with that in New York. Wasn't there some sort of controversy with COVID?
Yeah. So what that was another thing that I wanted to talk about, but we didn't get to it. The New York City public schools now, our mayor de Blasio decided to mandate New York City public school teachers to be vaccinated by the time school starts, to have at least one vaccine.
Oh, okay. As far as I think there are a lot of places that are doing that. It's not just not just schools though, right? I thought I heard like most of the airlines are doing something like that as well, right?
Oh, I didn't hear about the airlines. I do know that now businesses, we have to check people if they're going to come into the business. They have to show a card, or
Oh,
else
yeah, yeah, go ahead.
a card, a vaccine, a passport, something to show that they had at least one vaccination, or else they're not allowed indoors now. Indoor dining, indoors in movie theaters, and venues and gyms. We
Yeah.
have to. And now I'm also, I think I mentioned last week that I also teach yoga at a yoga studio, and a girl showed me her vaccine card the other day. So like it's starting. It's already starting.
Wow, that's kind of scary. That's actually kind of scary right there. I think. I mean, that's getting into people's private information almost. I mean, I don't want people knowing what I've done. It's just, I don't know. How do you? What happens if someone doesn't show a card? Do you have to tell them to leave?
So yeah, I actually am supposed to turn them away, and it's very hard. So like you were asking how I feel about it. I don't know if you don't really want me to answer that, or if you do want me to answer that.
If you're
Um,
comfortable, let me put it this way: are you comfortable with answering that? If you're uncomfortable, then don't do it. But if you're comfortable with it, that's fine. If you,
Yeah,
I
no, I'm fine with answering it. I think that every person is entitled to their own opinion. I think that we all have different perspectives when we're looking at something, right? We're all different, and that's what makes the world go round, right? I have such an appreciation for the fact that everybody has a different perspective on issues, and maybe you do agree, maybe you don't agree, but either way, I think that the main problem here is that this is causing separation, which is very upsetting. It's it's gotten to the point where it's become political. I feel like when it comes to the vaccines, where it's you like mandates, right? So you're mandating somebody to get a vaccine that they may or may not be comfortable with getting. And I understand that it's all about the greater good for the people that are at higher risks. But the thing that bothers me is that people aren't being given the freedom to choose what's right for them and their own personal body and their own.
right,
That's
exactly.
it's a very touchy issue, right? Because you don't want to offend anybody who is maybe immunocompromised, who sees the vaccine as a way to, acquire herd immunity. And then you also don't want somebody on the other side who's not comfortable getting the vaccine to be offended. So I'm more in my own life. You know what it is? This might sound like crazy to people who aren't into like astrology and things like that, but I'm a Libra, and I've always been about balance. And I've always been able to look at both sides of an issue and say, "Oh, well, you have a valid point." And then I say, "Oh, well, you have a valid point." It's like that back and forth. So I appreciate what's happening on both sides, but I just wish that there was a way that we could do the best for every person without making somebody feel like they have to do something they're not comfortable doing on either side, if
Right.
that makes sense.
No, as far as the now that I think we discussed this as well. I mentioned something about this. What if somebody can't get the shot and they need to eat food? Does that mean they're not allowed to go to the supermarket?
No, so it's not supermarkets, it's just indoor dining.
Oh,
So
oh,
it's like you can't be you won't be allowed inside of a restaurant, but there are actually restaurants in New York that refuse to enforce it.
oh, they're not. Are they being penalized? Are they being? I've heard about places that defy the orders. Are they being? Is something happening to them?
I don't know, because I think that now don't quote me on this either, but I think that there are some places in New York that are filing a lawsuit.
Hmm. And as far as the I mean, the because I heard about some places like about a year ago where they were like they were are there any businesses that are actually closed anymore? Are there any? Is it going back to the idea of like essential businesses are only allowed to be open, or is everybody open at this point?
No, at this point, everybody's still open.
Okay.
I don't know if anything's going to change because of the Delta. I don't know if you've heard about the Delta variant.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. So that's what's happening now. And then my husband just mentioned to me the Lambda. There's like another variant that's coming out.
Oh no, I didn't hear that one. No, that one's is that newer? That must be something more recent, is it?
I guess so. I didn't even hear about it until he just told me about it. But I'm like you, Zoom, where a lot of times I'm like on the where I'm staying away from media and I'm kind of staying away from the news because I feel like there's a lot of fear being put out. And fear and anxiety can affect your immune system. So I'm trying to do whatever I can to kind of stay away from it, which is probably why I don't know enough about Afghanistan to talk about it yet, you know?
I gotcha. I gotcha. That's
Mhm.
but the it's the yeah, my reasoning is just different. And also when you have the you have the fear factor, you also have the other people that are countering on their side, and yeah, it's just become too political in so many ways. I don't. It's the political divide is just way up there. So if a lot of people feel that they must side with one side or the other, and I'm just like I don't want to side. Like I said before, I don't want to side with either side. I just want to be myself. I'll listen to any point of view, but I'm tired of hearing points of view that are so biased that are trying to see. I listen to people on the left, I listen to people on the right, and they both seem to do the same thing. They both do the fear factor thing. They both try to create this fear idea in your head, and then they act like that their idea is right and the other person's wrong. And the fear is that to try. It seems like they're trying to drive you to do what they want you to do with that. And it's really it's that's I gave up on both sides, about a while ago because of that. It just really makes me angry, because I don't want to be manipulated. I just want to I just want to hear the facts. Let me make my own decision. So I mean, and there are a couple of people out there that aren't biased, and I like to listen to what they have to say, and those are more refreshing because you can tell that they'll say negative things about both sides and positive things about both sides, and you realize that they don't have a bias. They're not trying to trick you or force you into doing something that they want you to do, and it works. Yeah, that's the stuff I want to hear. I don't want to hear the other. Yeah, the fear factor stuff really just makes me angry. So
Yeah, I agree with what you're saying. I do. I feel like I I like when people give you the facts and then they say, here's the facts, this is the way that it is, and then you make your own decision based on what works best for you. So like
mhm.
that's where I am on the issue.
Now, getting back to, I was just curious, as far as the immunizations, the vaccinations, that's just New York City, right? Or is that the whole state?
No, it's New York. It's only New York City public schools.
Yeah, well, I'm talking about when it comes to businesses, like you said about having the vaccinations, like to prove that they've gotten it. Is that just New York City?
Yes, New York City.
Okay, because you said the schools a second ago, so I wasn't sure what you.
Yeah, so New York City public schools, um, the mayor wants the teachers to be vaccinated.
Oh, okay, I see what you're saying. Okay, I didn't know what you meant when you said that. Okay, gotcha.
Mhm.
Um, so basically, if it's something that's very essential, like going to the grocery store, you don't have to have a vaccination. But if it's something that's not as essential, like say a restaurant, you do have to prove it. Or like when you're teaching, like your yoga classes, you do have to prove it. Is that what it comes down to? Something
Right.
like
So like if a student's coming in, yes, but that's not being enforced until September 13th.
okay.
So until then, I don't know if anything's going to change.
Oh, okay. That's interesting.
So like
And but you said you've already been checking people. Is that right?
I haven't been checking people, but somebody offered me their card.
Oh, I see. Okay, that makes more sense. Okay, gotcha.
She just pulled it out of her wallet or whatever to just show me.
The and as far as being able to tell it was her, what was the? I'm curious. What does it have her name on it? How did the card look? How could you tell it was actually hers?
Oh, the vaccine cards have your name on it. Mhm.
Oh, okay. I'm just curious if those are if people are going to start forging those, and there's going to be counterfeit ones out there. So, um,
There could be. I mean, I don't really know. I don't know into that stuff. I don't know. I don't have the facts behind that, but I mean, people make jokes, so who knows?
right. Yeah, that is kind of scary. Fortunately, where I'm at right now, they don't have anything like that. In fact, I took a cab. I was taking I was took my car to the shop. I had to get a cab ride back, and then had to get a cab ride back from my house to the shop. And in both instances, I asked the people before they picked me up on the phone, I said, do you need me to wear a mask? Is there any restrictions? They said, no, don't worry about it. It's all good. So I said, okay, whatever. And, and
Mhm.
the people that picked me up in the cab were like, really, I didn't wear a mask or anything. They were like, they're all cool. They were talking to me real friendly, like, so, it didn't seem to be a big deal. Is it like that uh, where you are? Is it's right now, it seems I don't go out as much as I'd like to, but it doesn't seem like there's a lot of fear right now. And where I'm at, it just seems like people are like, just like, yeah, they're acting like it's not that big of a deal anymore. Is it like that where you are? I mean, aside from the rules that are being enforced.
Yeah, I feel like a lot of people are just ready to go back to normal as it can be at this point.
Okay. And
Mhm.
yeah, I think where I'm at is also kind of rural. I mean, what is rural? I mean, because it is rural, I think that more rural areas seem to be like not as concerned as people more in urban areas. And that's just an opinion I have. Um, I do know like before what like the early part of last year, between like February and May of last year, when people were starting to wear masks and they were getting all afraid, of getting the disease. When I go to the supermarket, the people that worked at the supermarket were like, "This is," they were acting like it was no big deal. And I would talk to them, and they would actually say things like, this is just getting out of hand." But then some of the customers were like really nervous, and they were like all paranoid. So it was like it wasn't 100% like not a big deal, but it seemed like the vast majority of the employees acted like it was no big deal. Um, and I've heard people that were in more urban areas, more city areas, that was it was the exact opposite. Everyone was pretty scared. I don't know if it was like that for you. Was it like that for you?
Yeah, in the beginning, we were all really, really scared.
Wow. Okay. So
Mhm.
that's so funny. It's so funny because where I was, it was the exact opposite. Like I say, except for a handful of like customers, the stores were the exact opposite. In fact, the stores just looked like it was a big inconvenience everywhere I went. So I just find that so funny because I've heard that the more rural areas tend to be more against the whole thing, the idea of being told what to do, and the people that are in the city areas seem to be more afraid of it. I don't know if it's like that everywhere, but that's what I experienced that. You between the stories you and I have, that seems to verify that. I mean, just on that alone, but I don't know. It's so weird how different it actually is. Hmm. Anyway, were you? I'm just curious. Were you caught up in any? Because I remember hearing there was a lot of people that were caught up in the fear frenzy at first. Were you caught up in that?
Me personally, yes, I was. I actually deal with a little bit of anxiety, so for me, it was like a little bit of a trigger.
Hmm.
And I also am always washing my hands anyway before, so I was really nervous about, I feel like there wasn't a lot of information in the beginning, and I remember us when it first started, like we couldn't get groceries here. Everybody was running out, wearing like I think you and I spoke about this last week. There were people wearing gloves. They didn't want to touch anything. I remember we ran in and out of the supermarket really quick. Didn't want to be near people.
Wow. Wow.
Yeah,
That's so interesting. That I found that interesting. Was everyone else like that as well? The people around you?
not everyone. Some people were fine with it, but I think overall in the beginning it was like there was a little bit of fear definitely around the city.
Wow, that's interesting. Okay. That's
Mhm.
Yeah, it definitely was not like, I mean, like I said, a handful of people, like customers, not people that worked at the stores, were like that. But as far as the people at the stores, it was every time walked in, it was like everyone had a very relaxed attitude. They weren't afraid of anything. I just find it so fascinating how different it is in one area versus another area, how that whole thing reacted, how the reactions were so vastly different. So.
Mhm.
And someone in Miami, or St. Petersburg, actually was telling me that when she was down there, that there was a major fear thing, and she was caught up in it for a while, and for the first couple months, and then she basically decided it wasn't that big of a deal after a while. And she said everyone down there was also like what you described, very much just like what you said. People were very much afraid. That's I just find that so fascinating how different it really is in different areas like that. So. Anyway, I learned it. I just find that stuff fascinating.
Yeah, me too. It's interesting to see that, the more populated areas were like that and like more like what you're saying, more rural wasn't at all.
Hmm. Mhm.
Mhm.
I'd like to see what it was. Now, I have some family that live way in the hills of Pennsylvania. I mean, we're talking about a really rural area. I'm not sure if you ever heard of Altoona, Pennsylvania. If you go like 20 miles outside of Altoona, it's just nothing but farmland is, and it just as far as you can see. And I spent back in the late 80s, I spent some time on my uncle's farm, like about a month, a little less than a month at my uncle's farm, and there was like hardly anyone around. Like you could sit on his property, and you wouldn't see a car drive by on the road he was on. It was like a main road through the area, but you wouldn't see a car drive by all day. That's how sparse the population was. I'd like to see what they were doing in that area. I just, I mean, they probably weren't even. They probably would like act like it was just a normal day, like nothing was even going on. I would bet. So,
Yeah, who knows, right? And I think that it probably has a lot to do, like what we were talking about before, like with the media, right? With the news.
oh yeah,
It's
yeah. Go ahead.
yeah.
Go ahead.
No, it was like we were watching the news every single day and the mayor was on, like there were all these things happening. So I don't know,
Yeah.
it feeding into the fear.
Right, right, right. It's and then yeah, then of course some of the things got political after a while, and then people were taking sides. I was like, oh, okay, whatever. And when that starts to happen, I just phase out. Well, I was already kind of phasing out to begin with, but I was phasing out even more. So
Yeah, and then you like start glazing over. You're like, enough already, right?
yeah, yeah. Well, like I said, right now where I'm living right now, I haven't had much interaction with people. And the thing is, I work out of my home already. It would like nothing really changed when the whole thing started. So Um, but like my neighbors, we walk around outside. I have three neighbors immediately near well, two right next to my house, and they walk outside. They don't seem to be afraid. We've waved to each other. Nobody wearing masks or anything. So I don't know. It doesn't, even my neighbors seem to be like really relaxed at this point. The whole time they've seemed relaxed. I haven't seen them do anything that was out of the ordinary as far as that. The only thing I did see was my one neighbor. He does gardening or landscaping, I should say. And for the first couple of months of last year, I think he was out of work. I don't think had any work for him to do, so he was staying at home a lot. But other than that, I didn't see anything unusual. So,
Mhm.
so alrighty. Well, I guess we can go ahead and wrap up now. Very interesting conversation we had there. And by the way, I'll go ahead and bring this up just one more time, just for the hell of it. We got up to 106 votes, and the percentage is basically still the same.
Yeah, pretty cool. Thank
Well,
you everybody for typing in.
yeah, and yeah, I left the link for the poll in the chat section, so if you want to click there, you can go there as well. So, all right, Amanda. So I guess we'll come back next week, and we'll see everyone. Thanks for being on too.
Yeah, thank you so much for joining, and thank you everybody for chatting in and for answering our poll.
Ready? Bye bye.
Bye.